The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
You're crushing pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Grip Show. And with me today, I have Joe Hodgson and Henry Mullett from Australia. And we're going to be covering the most recent competition that took place in Australia. So welcome to the show, guys. Joe, you've been here before, but Henry is his first time on the show. And I'm going to give a little spoiler alert.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. And I'm going to give a little spoiler. Henry was the overall winner, and we're going to get into the numbers and stuff like that. But yeah, he's joining us for the first time on the show, but monster lifts and a really great performance. Joe, did you want to kind of just break down the competition name and just kind of where things were located and kind of just give a quick intro to that?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, everyone. So the name of the comp was the Strongfest 2 Capital Grip Challenge. The first one was last year, so this is number 2. And it was held at the Ultra Strength and Fitness Gym in Canberra. Canberra's in the Australian Capital Territory, so it's a different state than what I'm in and what Henry's in. So we had guys from, we had Sarah Rodwell. She came down from Darwin in the Northern Territory. We had Henry Mullett and Lachlan Simms. They came from the Melbourne kind of area. I came from Sydney. Samuel Voigt, sorry if I said it wrong, he's from Canberra area. Glenn Hunter came from Melbourne area. Dominic Arwood, he came from Sydney. Matthew Whaling, he's from Canberra. James Sue, he's from Canberra. Thomas Denmead, he's from Sydney. Mark Boylin, he's the guy that owns the gym, runs the comp. He's from Canberra. Dean Redzik, he's also from Canberra. Thomas Claxton, he's from Sydney. And so is a young lifter, Joseph Amir. And so what they did was they ran 4 different disciplines with different handles. And then the maximum weight lifted, the top lifter won each event. So there was a female category, and that was it. So the 4 events were the Andrews Axle, the grab ball, the one hand nightmare, the napalm one, and the mandrel.
Okay, so with that being said, do you guys know how that event selection came about by chance? Or did you guys have any input in that at all? Or was that just something that Mark did as the host?
I spoke to him after the last comp. I said, what are the handles going to be in the next year's one? And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, it's your comp. you can decide, mate. That's the beauty of running your own group comp, is you decide. He suggested a few things, and then all I said was, we don't have to run the same handles. You can run whatever handles you want. You can use unique. You can use any bizarre thing you want. It doesn't have to be GSI tracked. It doesn't have to be, to anyone's standard. It's just a unique thing. And then I just threw some things out there, and they kind of stuck. And there was mixed reactions to that. You can't please everyone.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of back and forth, and they're the 4 handles we ended up settling on. So.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you is, and Henry, you could take this question next if you wanted. How did you feel about the event lineup going into it?
Pretty good. Originally, it was going to be a roughly 2.5 inch kind of axle, and that event wasn't going to be tracked by GSI because it was just an axle, like a tire style axle that Mark had for his strong gym. And leading to that, it kind of made me think maybe if it was possible to get, because originally there was 2 events that weren't tracked by GSI. And I had the thought of maybe we can try and, because we've already got the axle there, if we can get something similar size like the Andrews axle and have it ticked off by the powers that be in America, then we can have another event tracked by GSI, which would be great because there aren't a lot of lifters on that list and there's no one from Australia. But leading into it, I thought the list was quite good because you had the vertical grip, a rolling handle. The grab ball was interesting because I hadn't actually seen or even knew what that was. And then the axle, I think that's a good selection of tools for sure.
All right. And then, Joe, what were you thinking?
I knew that I wasn't going to do well on any axle. So as far as that was concerned, I just thought I'll see how it go. As far as the two-hand nightmare, I didn't have one. I didn't feel amazing about it, but I've been doing lots of rolling hand a lot of years now, so I wasn't overly worried. Grab ball, I don't mind grab ball, no secret. And the mandrel, that was just I wasn't sure. I liked the tool. It was a really cool idea in that. No idea about numbers, but so
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just wondering because it's always interesting to get people's perspective where they're like, man, this event went better than I thought, or oh, I was worried about this, or oh, like 3 of these 4 events are like the things I'm the best at, so I knew it was going to be a good day. So I always like just kind of hearing what people thought before. I mean, then we kind of can obviously cover how it unfolded. So with Sarah Rodwell being the only women's lifter, I mean, obviously, you're standing on the podium alone, basically. But she technically would have won the competition. She's the only, women's lifter. But how do you guys feel like her performance was overall? And Joe, like I said, if you had any insight maybe to where she fell on a couple lists or something, that could be mentioned. But if not, then just I feel like I said, it's one category, but if we could just kind of mention maybe kind of how some of her lifts stacked up and how she did.
Sarah's not a really big woman. Sarah's she's got pretty small hands and that. She's crazy powerful. She's incredibly strong. She had concerns going in. I think the very first concept for one of the tools was going to be a 3-inch axle, and I think she was the first. Why on earth are we doing? What am I supposed to do with that? And
I mean, for most men's lifters, that's like 3 inches almost becomes a pinch lift. You almost get out a thick bar and it's like a pinch, So you got,
totally, and it made sense to me, and that's when we sort of started going down the 2.5 inch and the Andrews axle. She also had an injury on her pinky finger. I think she did a tendon or a pulley or something. Well, she might have even fractured the bone. But her finger was totally taped up, so she was lifting with 9 fingers. So the axle was always going to be a bit of a struggle for her. I think grab ball she wanted to do a little bit more, but she was kind of happy with. One hand nightmare, 60 kilos is a pretty good lift, and the mandrel 53. Well, that's a great lift too, considering it's virtually unknown tool.
Mm-hmm.
She was always going to do great. She's so strong and she's such a dedicated athlete that, she was never going to come unprepared.
Yeah, that makes sense because, like I said, I see some of the videos. So, I mean, she's always training something, even if it's not 100% grip related. Just coming in prepared and, lifting all kinds of stuff. So, like I said, you can tell she's a serious competitor, serious about the training. And then I don't know, like I said, did you guys break it up by weight class or for the men's side, or was it pretty much just kind of like an open and then maybe the pound for pound configuration kind of added in?
It was that. Yep. And then it was obviously broken down more for the GSI results, but it was just men.
Okay. So from there we could really kind of just start maybe going event by event if you wanted.
Sure.
And I'm assuming these are in order of how they took place. So did you guys start with the axle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, this is just side note here. Henry, you took the top lift with 185 kilos, which I hope my correction or my calculations are correct. I think it's about 407 pounds.
Yep.
Is what it comes out to.
That's right.
And I want to say, and this is just like I said, I hope nobody quotes me on this. I'm just doing the best I can with this, but very similar to how sometimes bars or implements will have a sanctioned body like GSI tracking them for competitions. There's also lists kept for certain items. Like, for example, let's just say if it was the flask, there's kind of like, oh, well, this is like people that have submitted stuff for the flask, but it wasn't even, it might not have been sanctioned in competition. It could have been a video submission or something. And then you have like the actual stuff that was lifted in competition. So sometimes those lifts might not match up, but the reason it's called Andrew's axle is because of Andrew Derniat. who everybody in the, typically in the grip world, most people are familiar with him. Even though he's not as active, these days. But just a monster lifter, unreal grip strength. And I want to say off of the old Fat Bastard Barbell Company that produced the Andrews axle, I want to say on their list, Derniat had lifted like 396 pounds or something of that nature.
180 kilograms it was, yeah.
Okay. So
just shy of 400.
So yeah, pretty much in that ballpark. So I wanted to point out that at Heavy Hands, Eric Roussain had set the GSI record because it was really the first time that we had kind of brought it back to contest it with a lift of 383 pounds. And although Derniat had also lifted that, but your numbers outlifted anything that was done by, anybody. So that's kind of like unanimous. That's the biggest lift I've heard of pulled on that bar to date. So congrats on that.
Thanks. I was a little bit unsure because I did find the Fat Bastard Barbell Company record or list, and then obviously there's the GSI one, but it was almost like the GSI one was just because of, I don't know if it was a single competition or what it was. It was evident that not a lot of people had used it. And I kind of thought maybe what is the top kind of number? I thought, well, obviously I knew the 180 kilograms, and that's what I had in my head that I was really trying to beat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to know that, it's interesting that there are other lists that kick around for certain handles and axles, but I guess everybody, particularly myself being so new, just uses GSI as a gold standard to kind of look. But I was aware of that one, the 180 kilograms, definitely, of Andrew lifting that axle.
Yeah, and like I said, that's a big deal, and it's also good that you guys contested because we had talked about like, me and Ben when we first did Heavy Hands, like, man, we want to get this thing contested a little bit more. We kind of want to bring that back to make it a little bit more about grip, and we have different diameters and widths for everything else. Like, why does the axle always have to be 2 inches or something? You got, a size or two for Saxon bars or pinch blocks or whatever, different diameters for rolling handles. And like the axle was like the same 2-inch axle and whatever. So, and that had been used and already like made, but no one was really tracking it. So it's cool to see other people, especially, all the way across the world, like, yeah, we're going to contest that too. Because like you said, it kind of builds up that list. And now we have a better idea where everybody kind of stands, because for the longest time, it's like, well, that's what these guys lifted at one competition. And then we went like 5 or 6 years and it was like, well, this is what these 15 guys did. And now we just have more information and hopefully kind of, now people maybe want to chase that 407, or maybe you try to re-break your own record. So it just makes things better and kind of keeps things interesting when items like that get contested more. So I think it was a good choice. I say, Joe, you can kind of keep rolling down if you want. I just wanted to make mention of that that record for Henry, and like I said, he took first place in that. But if you want to kind of break down maybe how some others did on that, or what your kind of thoughts were about the axle lifts. Yeah, that's
just going to say, Henry Mullett won the comp overall. He won 3 out of 4 events. Lachlan Simms came second. He did another huge axle lift as well at 160, and I think the next jump was a little bit big. I think he would have got a bit more than that, but 160 was the last successful lift. It was kind of going up, and by that stage it was him and Henry, and Henry had numbers pretty firmly in the front of his head, I think. So he knew what jumps he was going to make, and I think Lachlan was just kind of going lift for lift with Henry, and then obviously Henry kept going after Lockie dropped out. But did another huge lift. Samuel, he did a great lift as well. So did Dominic from Sydney. James Hugh, he's a strong guy and a powerlifter from Canberra. He also did a pretty big lift. Like when you're talking over 130 kilos for someone that's not specifically a grip guy on a 2.5-inch axle, that's a pretty good. So who else? And down there, and Matthew Whaling as well. He got like 125. Glenn Hunter 120. Thomas Denmead, the guy weighs 72 kilos and he did 125 kilos on it. So
that's a good lift. Yeah.
such a powerhouse.
I reckon he certainly had more in him too, as far as his hands were concerned. Getting it up was a bit different. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what he could pull if he had the strength to through his legs and back. But yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah.
And Joe, I think it's worth mentioning. I know you don't necessarily want to talk about yourself maybe too much here, but for the axle, you took a very low lift because I believe you've been dealing with some injuries. I mean, like I said, it's not that we want to make excuses or anything like that, but I think it should be noted that like you didn't go out there and like red line on the axle and like, you know what I mean, go all out. You know,
I was playing a safe game because Andrew's axles was obviously the first lift, so I kind of, I knew there's no way I was going to beat Henry anyway. So sort of part of picking my battle was, you know, being able to lift the following lifts. So I didn't want to destroy myself. So I just played it. I was kind of thinking maybe going in, I'd try and go for about 100 and see how everything holds up. And when I got to about 90, I'm like, you know what? It's not going to make any difference anyway. So that'll do. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. And like I said, and maybe some people have opinions about it, but like, yeah, that's probably a veteran's move, you know, because it's like you like, if you're not 100% already, and then you go and then try to like push to the maximum capacity, that's like, you're probably still not going to be happy with the number. Even if you went all out, you're not going to be happy, or it's not going to be as good as it could have been. And then, like you said, you risk injury and then you end up sitting out the other events, or you screw up your other numbers. And yeah, so like I said, I just want to make a mention of that. So if anybody looks at the numbers or hears the numbers and they're like, man, Joe only did that, he's one of the top lifters. It's like, well, you know, just wanted to add context to it. Yeah, people weren't like confused or something, you know. And then from that, you guys contested the grab ball, and you had made mention to me that it was fairly new, so that maybe some of the numbers were a little bit lower than expected, or maybe, you know, some of the lifts in the past.
Yeah.
Just because the texture, you know, maybe it's a little slicker or something. But like I said, we still cover it. And Joe, you had the top lift there, I believe, for the grab ball.
Yeah, it was a brand, still shiny silver, not a scarica chalk on it. Andrew seems to pump them out pretty quickly. This one still had big, sharp lumps of weld splatter on it. That was like, if anyone used that, they would have ripped their hands open immediately. So luckily one of the fellows had a grinder with a flat disc, and I could actually make it safe enough to lift. So we got rid of those flat bits. Gotcha. But then as we everyone was dropping off much faster than they were expecting because there was no friction on it. It was still so shiny. So people were getting nowhere near their previous records. None of the lifts made any of the GSI things except for Sarah. She came in 8th on the GSI list.
Okay.
I don't know. That must have been her best. So she must have bested her last year's performance because she did KK last year, I believe. So that must have come in there. And Henry, it was his first time on it, so he made the list in the over 120s as well. As I said, that was one event that I had a shot at, so I kept going and managed the top lift on that. So that was pretty cool. I was happy with that. But everyone was dropping off early. Everyone was going up in 10-kilogram jumps pretty much, and then it got to. Once it got near 50, 60, nearly everyone had gone. And there was only a handful remaining. And then so Dominic, he got 58. Glenn Hunter did 63. Samuel got 63. Lockie got 63. Henry got 78, which is the second highest lift on that thing. And then I managed 88 points.
And that's a little bit, like again, you mentioned. Oh, I was saying that's a little bit lower than your previous stuff. What's your best lift on that in competition, Joe? Just curious, like where are you at on the list? Do you even know?
Oh, I think 100. My top lift on it's 100. So I didn't
220 pounds or so. But that has to be like in the top, like 3 probably.
Number
88.
2.
Overall. Yeah, because
So yeah, so second highest lift all time on that. But yeah, okay, yeah. I just wanted to, just checking.
It was funny when we all weighed in. went to get breakfast, and then me, Glenn, and Tom all looked at each other and goes, "Did you bring any tools?" And we're like, no. And we go, "Did you see the grab ball?" Like this, you could see yourself in it. We're like, "Oh man, we had tools in all of our garages, and none of us thought to bring them."
Yeah, because like I said, if you had maybe one that was a little rusted up or a little more I don't know, just had been used and broken in, those numbers could probably you could expect the numbers to be a little bit higher, because that is what it's a weird shape, it's a weird handle.
Yeah.
And just how do you grab it, and how sometimes people put their thumb, like we talked about, so like there's different ways to grip that thing, whereas a lot of other stuff, it's I don't know, what I mean, like thick bar, it's like there's only so many variations you can really grab the thing. But with something like the grab ball, there's a lot of strategy and technique for different hand shapes and stuff like that. So it might take some time to kind of find your groove. But it definitely, the friction helps on that, with that round shape and the flat edges on the flange and stuff. So if that thing has a little more rust or texture to it, that's a lift that it would matter. Yeah. So then for the one hand nightmare, you guys use the 2-inch diameter, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Just wanted to double check. So that's the one hand nightmare. But the 2-inch is the diameter. So it's a one hand rolling handle. And, you guys can kind of just, if you want, just kind of cover how that event went down. And,
do you want to give you a,
yeah.
So Henry came first. He got the new world record for that with 119.5 kilograms.
Yeah.
So he smashed that. Lachlan Simms came in at 109.5 kilograms. So basically Henry got the #1 spot in the GSI in the over 120.
So yeah, for the top 100 list for the 2-inch one hand nightmare handle, and I have mine set in pounds right now, but Henry, you outlifted Eric Rusain by a little bit over 3 pounds. So you had 263-pound lift, and Eric had 260 that was previously done at heavy hands.
Yeah.
And then it goes down like Jason Mikowski, Ben Helms, Zach Ebel, then Lachlan Simms, and then Joe, you're sitting at 9th place right now.
Oh, okay.
And you know what's funny? That's for the overall list, for how it's been contested, and mostly that's just 2 main competitions. But Joe, you're 9th place and I'm in 10th overall, and you outlifted me by 0.08 pounds. So was that intentional?
Everything's intentional, Zach.
No, I'm just messing with you. That's like, that's like the tiniest fraction of a plate, man. But yeah, no. So I just happen to be looking at the overall all-time list and where it stacked up, because, like I said, we held that event at our comp, and you guys held that too. So it's cool to kind of see where everybody, ended up. But yeah, Joe, you got me. You beat me on that one. But and then Henry, you outlifted Eric for the overall title. For that. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to kind of clear up that list, because I'm like, man, I know, somewhere in there there's got to be a couple other names. Just looking at the numbers. But yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, we can get back on topic.
For me, that was one of the only lifts that I walked away a bit annoyed with myself about, because I left a bit on the table. I had a strategy going into it, because I had lifted more than 119.5 in training, and my goal was to try and get to 130 if I could. And when I went to 119.5, I got that with my left hand, which actually surprised me, because typically my left hand's around 10% behind my right. And I thought, oh, it felt pretty good. I don't know why, but I said throw another 10 kilos on it. So we're at 129.5. And on the first lift, I think I was about an inch off the crossbar. And then I reset and I got to about 1 millimeter off the crossbar on the second lift. So I just unfortunately couldn't pull that off. I was really looking forward to making that gap a lot higher than what I did in the end. But I should have gone for the 125 in between, secured that, and then maybe going higher. So that's just my lack of experience and lack of kind of thought process during the competition. I should have followed what I had written down. And I might have had that a little bit higher, but I was still super happy to still get that #1 spot. Just unfortunately, like I said, I just did leave some on the table, but there's always going to be another competition. So I'll be shooting higher next time.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing too, is like, it's the same thing if you're in a competition and, I think we all have an idea of what we're going to try to do for certain lifts. But when you go in, it's like if the handle's slick or something doesn't feel right, or maybe you have injury, like sometimes you have to kind of make that adjustment mid competition and pull back. Other times it's like stuff is feeling so good right now. I know this is what I wrote down, but I have to try more, and it goes the other way.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. And sometimes it's going by feel in the middle of the competition that can kind of determine, and it changes
I
stuff.
think just that experience in competitions, that was only my second ever comp. And if I had more experience, I probably would have been a bit more conservative and followed my plan versus trying to, I don't even know why I went 10 kilos. It was a pretty ridiculous jump when I look back at it now. But I thought I had it in me. But no, I think just trying to get more experience through competitions, like you said, you can read the handle slightly differently, how you're feeling, how things are, the variables that are outside your control, as opposed to sort of when you're in your own environment or at a friend's house lifting. I think those things come into play a lot more, obviously, during competition, and it's important to be in tune with the variables that you don't have control over to try and maximize yourself on the day. So that's just a learning curve for myself. One specific note I took away, but it's all interesting. I will enjoy it all, but like I said, just gives me a chance to one up it next time one day.
Yeah, which
that was also.
I'm sure you'll do. Keep going, Joe. You're good. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that was also a really slick, slippery handle as well. So that's and it's not until you get anywhere near your max that you work out that that's a problem. So Henry hitting 119.5 comfortably, and then it wasn't a problem. And then when he went that jump that was just that smidge too high, that's when you worked out that the handle friction was a factor for him. But I'd add that, Henry.
Okay, and then if we go on to the mandrel, which if
probably important we clarify that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so for the mandrel, essentially we're talking about like a mandrel shaped, cone shaped. Oh, you gonna show? Yeah, Joe, just show us what's up. Yeah, so you basically have like a it's a vertical lift, but it's kind of in the spirit of like a little bighorn or something, kind of like that. You know what I mean? For anybody just listening in, but if you're visually watching this, Joe's got the handle up. So just explain the handle a little bit and how it came about.
Yeah, so I saw this on a blacksmithing website, and I was like, oh, that thing's cool. It's like a little bighorn, a smaller little bighorn, and basically the vertical spike that you put in the hardy hole of an anvil, making rings or whatever it is you're making. And I just drilled a hole in it so that I could put it in my grip top loading pin and do lifts. I thought it was a great thing, and one of the things I suggested to Mark running the comp was we could do something unique like the mandrel. He said, okay, no, let's add it. And then everyone got on the chat and they said, what the hell's a mandrel? They said, how are we going to train this? And I said, well, they're on this website. And then I told them all the website, and then they were unavailable. I have no idea when they were getting them. And that's when Henry stepped up, and being a machinist, he said, well, I can make some replicas. So then he came up with the Mullett mandrel. I hope you don't mind me calling it that. So he made everyone copies of this, identical ones and little rings. So it's basically like a smaller diameter little bighorn, and it's a work of art. The thing's solid as, it's beautiful. It's it's a really great tool. I love it, and I think everyone else enjoyed lifting on it as well.
So after we all sort of got curious about what the mandrel was, and I asked Joe, I said, well, what are the dimensions of it? Because I'd like to make something pretty close to it so I can train and see where things are at before I get to competition. And after I got the dimensions from Joe, I made one, and then I kind of thought, well, maybe if people are interested, I can sort of make them for the people who are competing or for whoever would like one. So I ended up making about 10 of them and distributing those to, people who purchased them. So it gave everyone an opportunity to sort of give it a crack before we went to the competition. And it ended up actually being quite a good handle. When I started off with it, it was right in line sort of with the little bighorn. And then I think just some technical kind of changes made it get a bit higher. But it's an interesting handle because there is a bit of technique with it, particularly with the wrist. It's a lot smaller than the bighorn, obviously. It starts at 2 inches diameter. roughly 50 mils and goes down to 10. So it's quite a lot different to the Bighorn, very different in the hand. But it's interesting because like there is a bit of technique I find, at least with that, which improved it quite significantly. So I think the Bighorn obviously is a very technical lift as well, and I haven't used it enough to really understand it as much as I'd like. But with that one, using it so much leading up to the comp, it was interesting to highlight the differences in vertical lifts, particularly those cone-shaped ones where friction and how you start and stretch the skin and all that stuff really plays into it.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome that, like I said, that you guys had some stuff that was contested, so guys could get on leaderboards and set records or do whatever. But then I think I like that you guys had the unique lifts as well, and the fact that, you're a machinist and you had the capability to do that and get them to everybody else is just a cool aspect of kind of covering this event, for this competition. But yeah, that's makes for a good story, and just makes for a cool way to train too, because I think I need to get one eventually, so I got to get my hands on one.
I've still got a spare one, mate. I'll be happy to send it to you.
Okay, yeah, but like I said, we can talk about that sometime. But yeah, I'll end up snagging one or paying to get one made or something. But yeah, definitely a cool handle. And like I said, it's cool that one of the competitors and the competitor that pulled the biggest lift on it's the person that also made it, whatever. But yeah, like I said, to me, it's just cool all around, and that's not something that you encounter in a lot of competitions. That there's like an untracked or new handle that I don't know, was made by a competitor and that everybody kind of actually likes and stuff. It's grip sport, grip strength stuff has been around so long, and these competitions, there's so many handles and companies. It is very tough to come out with something that's in those similar grip disciplines that's not just a total knockoff or just, oh, that's somebody's version of the same thing. So to create something that's in that same lane but unique enough to kind of stand on its own and be contested is pretty cool to me. So I'm a fan. But yeah, and for that, it says, Henry, you lifted almost 124 kilos, just under, for that.
Yes, yep.
I feel like that's a major lift. I mean, like I said, I haven't had hands on it because it's a new tool, but man, that's a lot of weight on something like that.
My max before that, just in training, was about 120. I I stopped leading up to it. I kind of did a small little peek to see where things at and test where things were. And I got to 120 and sort of stopped there going, that felt not too bad. It's a really interesting handle, like I think most vertical lifts. Once you feel like you've got locked in, lifting it's the easy part. It's just getting it comfortable, getting it in the right position, getting the friction right. But the other handle, like I said, I suit the vertical lifts because I have a reasonably good crushing grip, and I think that's very important for the vertical lifts. Yeah. But I was very happy with that number for sure.
And then Joe, were you second on that one?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, second highest lift.
My hands are not amazing at the time, so I went until I was the second last man standing. I got 91.3, and then I knew Henry was doing it so comfortably. It was his event to win anyway. Glenn Hunter, he got 88.8. And he lifted that thing about 3 foot off the ground. He brought up.
High pulled it.
I thought this is his and Henry's event, and then we jumped up to 91.3, and Glenn didn't quite make that lift. I tried with my right hand. That's the one I was mainly good at V-bars on, and I slipped on that, and somehow my left saved the day, and I got the lift. Mm-hmm. But I knew that I knew Henry was going to flog me anyway, so I thought there's no point going too hard. I just stood back and enjoyed the show as Henry maxed out on it. So, what else have I got down here? So other good lifts was Samuel. Samuel did a really good lift. He almost got 80 kilograms. Mm-hmm. Tom Denmead, he got over body weight on that, which is pretty cool. He got 73.8. And so did Dominic Ward, and so did Matthew Whaling. So considering it's such a new tool and people had not much time on it, everyone did some great lifts on it. But to watch Henry get up and up and up and up, it was really cool to see. So
And like I said, that would cover most of the events. Or that covers all the events there. But now if we go, I guess just in placing, do you kind of want to, like I said, we obviously Sarah Rodwell would be winning the only women's competitor there.
Yeah.
For the men's open, if you wanted to maybe cover, like the
Yeah, I can run down the list.
just,
So
yeah, or you just want if you want to run straight down, that's fine. Or if you just want to cover like a top whatever, and then we can go into maybe just a quick thing on just the pound for pound, just kind of cover some of that stuff. And then
yeah.
we can talk about post competition stuff.
So first place was Henry. Second place was Lachlan. Third place was me. Fourth place was Samuel. Fifth place was Glenn Hunter. Sixth place was Dominic Ward. Seventh place was Matthew Whaling. Eighth place was James Shue. Ninth place was Tom Denmead. 10th place was Mark Boylin. 11th place was Dean Redzik. 12th, Thomas Claxton. And 13th place was Joseph Amir. That Joseph Amir was a young fella that actually came on the day for the deadlift comp. And because Thomas Claxton, he does a bit of grip, Joseph decided to have a go on that as well. He was a young fella still in high school. He went on to the deadlift comp to break a couple of world records. Mm-hmm. And had to get him back that night because he had school the next day. So,
yeah.
And yeah, he was a nice young fella, and he did some good lifts as well. And then as far as pound for pound, Tom Denmead ran away with that. I'm not sure exactly what the scale is. So he's got 4.6 times body weight was his total lifts. So am I reading that right?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, depending on what the equation was or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it looks like that to me.
Yeah. So he won that, and then I came second on that somehow. So there was some heavyweight fellas there. So pound for pound doesn't work so great for the bigger lifters. And then third was Mark Boylin as well. So that's definitely worth. He got 3.4. So
yeah,
I
mean, it seems like like I said, a pretty well balanced, kind of strong lineup. Like you mentioned, I mean, you guys have some strong veteran lifters. Newer people that were maybe doing some other stuff that hopped in as well. So that's always good to see at a competition. Just a good mix of people. And then one of the things that a lot of people get into, talking about the competition is post-competition. There's always so much to try, or post-competition feats. At least for a lot of us, that's something we kind of look forward to if we still have the energy at the end of the day, because some of these competitions can run pretty long. But after a long competition, if you still have some energy, or you still are not burnt, just completely burnt out, it's cool to try different feats of strength or do different stuff, and everybody's kind of been amped up lifting a lot, so it's cool to kind of continue and go into other stuff and see what you can pull off around everybody. And you guys had some other stuff there to try out and lift. Now, not only did Henry win the competition, he went on to go and do some pretty crazy stuff after the competition that I want to make note of. But Henry or Joe, you guys could talk about what after the competition was like, and kind of what specific lifts did you have in mind, or what made you want to try it, or whatever the case is. But yeah, just covered the main comp, but how were the post-competition feats? Yeah.
Just before the competition, Joe kind of asked us, or at least myself, and I imagine a few others, that, what would you like to maybe see? Because Joe's got such an amazing collection of handles and tools and grip implements. He was more than happy to bring a few things down. So it was really good to see a couple of things down there that most people just don't get the chance to get their hands on. Mm-hmm. So the blobs were a major thing that I was happy to see and have a crack at, because they are rare in Australia, let alone in people's gyms. So that was a cool thing else. And those deep dish plates, Joe, were they from the gym, or were they yours too?
No, they were Mark's. Mark,
okay.
He had a cleaning at a gym, and he had them. Yeah.
Joe also had a finger blaster too, which was an interesting implement he had from God's Grip. Something that feels good until it doesn't, like most handles do. But that was interesting to try to see sort of where things tapped out on that. But after the comp it was good because, like you said, everyone sort of gets together and tries to see what they can do. They're not really saving themselves for anything. Pre-comp, everyone's feeling good and wants to do as best they can. But after the comp, everyone's just happy to have a crack at whatever they can. And particularly like when someone like Joe brings tools down and bits and pieces that people don't get to use almost ever, it's great to sort of see everyone have a crack at it.
Okay, so I was going to say, now, Joe, you got that's from God's Grip, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, big thanks to Tom. He sent his finger blaster over. We kind of ran it straight after the other group events. We were going to have a crack and see where we could get on the records. But sorry, Tom, we were well below where we needed to be. But all right, I was just going to say that I took down one of the original Fatmans. I took down a Legacy 120 and down the Holly 30 kilogram blob. Henry lifted all three first try in under a minute. So it was absolutely amazing. The blobs themselves are pretty special because the Fat Man was a gift from yourself to me, and that was the very first Fat Man blob in Australia. The 120 Legacy was a gift from Ben Helms, and that was the first 120 Legacy in Australia. And the Holly 30 was the number one. So it was the very first Holly 30 ever made, and I was the first one to lift it. So it was the first one made, first one lifted, and then anyway, just a bit of history behind them. And then Henry did them all easily without any surface prep, without even trying, without seeing them. So
yeah, and I want to make mention of that. Like, aside from just lifting all three of them in a short period of time post competition, right? There's a lot of things like an axle or rolling handles that, whether it be strongmen or just people that are training in general, if they're bigger guys with strong, big hands, whatever, it's like you can kind of naturally have some sort of carryover to a thick bar lift or something like that, because it might relate to other work you've done or other lifts you've done. I bring up how impressive this is because there's not a lot of things that you encounter that have the slopes or open your hand up in the shape that a blob will. So that's not something that you can really even prepare for, so if you're not preparing for it, that's just like, okay, either you can lift it or you can't. And it is such a weird thing that, like, your past training will have some carryover, but in that position, in that shape, probably not. So to lift all of those is just unreal power and unreal strength, because like I said, it's not even a position that one can really fully prepare for. There's maybe some things that, that have carryover or whatever, but out of all lifting things, it's like V bars and thick bar and other stuff. I feel like people can kind of, I don't know. They can kind of relate to that. It's similar. It's, their hands in a similar position, even if it's a little bit wider. But for a blob, it's like, it's just a whole different world. And
thanks, Zach. I appreciate the kind words. And I remember getting the blobs out of the car with Joe. I'm picking up, going, "What the hell? These things look, don't look the same as they do in videos." And just seeing them in person, going, "People lift these? Like, they are just vastly different to look at when you feel them and see them in person versus watching people do it on videos." And like you said, not a lot of carryover from almost anything. And when you get your hands on them, you don't have, unless you have them to lift, you just don't really get used to it, I don't think. But it for whatever reason, it felt comfortable for me. I do have a larger hand, and once I sort of had the right position, it felt secure. It wasn't going anywhere. So they were really fun to lift. Actually, I need to try and see if I can get some for myself or make myself something. But they're so unique that I certainly want to train with them and start working in with them.
Yeah, it would be interesting if we could get you, just get you on some heavier ones just to see where you end up.
Yeah, it would be nice. It's hard.
If that's the starting point, it's like that's a good sign. So,
are there any heavier ones in Australia, Joe? Is there 35 in Australia from Holly?
No, I've got a Blobzilla, but I've got the Blobzilla, which is 29 kilos, and and I've also got a homemade one, which is just ridiculously wide as well. But As far as I know, there's no Holly 5 here yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, just like I said, to see how high you could run with that, or with a little more training. And who knows? Like I said, I mean, it'd just be very interesting because you're going to be way up there. Those lifts are already, I mean, lifts that many people, myself included, I don't think I'll ever lift a Hall 30. I don't think I will. I just think the weight and hand shape. I'm not saying it's impossible for me, but you're getting on that like borderline for like anatomy and just
Yeah.
the whole like just human potential. I just feel like that would be a tough one for me. But yeah, so and I'm a decent blob guy, I guess. So that's just one that's like, yeah, great post competition lifts. And then Joe mentioned one other one that I want to bring up, and this will get people fired up because for some reason, out of all handles and other things, I'm not the biggest fan, but so many people go crazy over grippers and they get wild about it. They love them. They collect them. They go, it's like I don't know. I mean, there's people in grip that I think almost are only in grip because of grippers. And you don't really see that with a lot of other implements or tools. So with Captains of Crush being one of the big, gripper brands that kind of brings most people to the sport, or that's a lot of people's gateway. Everyone's pretty familiar with that, and they get really excited about it when somebody closes the number 3, or in this case, Joe tells me that you pulled a 3.5 out of a bag and basically just slammed it shut easy, and you were just kind of like showing everybody the handles, and it was I don't know what it rated. Do you know what it was rated at?
176, that one.
Okay. So yeah. And then, like I said, this is all post competition after maxing out and lifting ridiculous world-class blobs and then just smashing a 3.5. So that's another.
Grippers feel comfortable. The grippers were actually my introduction into sort of the grip world early days. So, I mean, quite a lot of people have, as a kid, seen the little spring grippers and foam handle things. And from then on, you don't know that there's this whole other world out there with, world-class sort of strength and grippers. And that was my first introduction, just through grippers. And I found Captains of Crush and eventually ended up getting my hands on a few of them, and just never really trained them as such, a little bit here and there, but it was always felt comfortable. I could nearly close a 3 just right away, a little bit of technique on that, and I had the 3 almost right away. But they're just a tool for me that feels really comfortable in my hands, and I enjoy doing because, like you said, they're very popular. People can relate to them a lot. They're relatively inexpensive and something that everyone can kind of test themselves against. So they're a good kind of benchmark, and they do generate a bit of excitement. So they're a cool tool. I do like them, but I don't train for them necessarily.
Yeah. So if that's where you're at and you don't really specialize or train them, do you have any plans to start training them more, or any future goals that you would like to reach with them?
Yeah, certainly. I have some goals around getting certified on them.
Okay.
The three I could sort of do any day of the week. 3.5 at this stage I could do any day of the week as well. Generally, the only thing I wouldn't be confident on is maybe one of the higher rated ones that you could open a packet and get. So I'd want to prep to do the 3.5. But no, I certainly do want to get certified on the 3.5. I might put aside a bit of time and train grippers specifically at some point and see if I can get to the number 4. Because when I first started to try the 3.5, it felt ridiculous, and now it feels fine. And the 4 feels ridiculous, but I think with some training, could maybe close that gap. And I certainly think I'll put some time towards it. But it does interfere a lot, I think, with the other solo training that I'm trying to do. Grippers take a lot out of you. They're hard on the hands. So I think it'll sort of take the back seat, and I'll do grippers here and there and maintain sort of where I like to be at. But I won't focus on it at this stage, no.
Okay. Yeah, I had to ask, like I said, because that's another like really great baseline you're just entering at. So it's like I said, and I know people are like, man, like there's so many people that wish that they could just do that. That I'm sure they're like, man, this guy's got to certify. He's got to do the 3.5. He's got to do the 4. I'm sure people just want to see it, but at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, we all want to see these big elite things happen from everybody, but sometimes their goals and what they want to work on, that just doesn't line up. And we see that sometimes. Keep going. Yeah,
to be honest, though, I kind of need to just get around to it and do it. If I put aside a couple of weeks and train grippers, I'd be pretty confident in opening a packet with the 3.5 and closing it. But just other goals at the moment sort of don't align with that. But like I said, I just need to just sort of, maybe I'll do it later in the year, early next year, we'll see. But
Okay.
it'd be nice to get it done. That way I sort of won't have to think about it in the back of my mind, at least for a while. And then think about the 4 down the track, maybe.
Yeah. Have you practiced with the credit card set much, or you just kind of close them however?
Yeah.
Okay. You have? Okay.
No, I pretty much practice them all with the credit card set. So I can close a 3 with or without the credit card and without any sort of dramas. Same with the 3.5. The credit card set's a bit more difficult, but yeah, it's not an issue.
Okay. And then for you guys, like I said, just discussing some of these post-competition feats, if there's anything else worth mentioning, like just fun, big stuff that happened after, or if you guys just wanted to kind of, I guess, wrap up your kind of final thoughts on the competition and just your experience there while you guys were lifting. So just kind of whatever you want to kind of close with.
Yeah, being from my experience, which is such a new person in as far as competitions going and grip, it was good. Like Mark did a great job. It's an awesome gym, plenty of room, good atmosphere. I'm sure he's happy to do it again. Sounds like he's already keen to do it again, which is great to kind of have these recurring things happening in Australia where the scene is, so small, and having these repeat events throughout the year, people can sort of focus on and work towards. I think it's really, really good. So from that perspective, I love it. I'm sure a lot of people are in the same position where they can sort of think about what's upcoming, when it's going to be. At least if there's reoccurring ones, it really gives people some incentive to train.
All right, Joe, you got anything?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Just that. Mark did a great job. I spoke to him. He said to say thank you to everyone for coming. He said to say special thanks to Henry for making the axle and the mandrels. Yeah, again, huge congrats to Henry for first, Lachlan for second. Another congrats to Sarah. She came all the way from Darwin, which is 3,000 kilometers or something.
And competed at the Highland Games the day before. So.
Yeah, she was Highland Games and the day before, and she still turned up and she did great. And everyone I met in the competition was great. Everyone was psyched for everyone. Every time there's a lift, everyone would cheer, and we were all bummed when people missed. And
Yeah,
he organized food. There's a burger place out the front for everyone to get food, and yeah, it was great. It was just a good event.
all right. Well, hey, man, like I said, I thank both you guys for stopping by and just covering this competition and letting us know what's going on with the scene over there. Because, like I said, I try to cover as much as I can, and sometimes it's hard when you're not at competitions. But like I said, as long as there's people like you guys that are willing to take your time to kind of let us know what's going on and give us the details and information, it just helps. It helps the sport. It helps everybody. So.
It's good exposure. Absolutely. Appreciate it, Zach. Thanks for having me. I look forward to hanging around for a while, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations in the future. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I look forward to seeing what you and Joe will pull off in the future, because I know Joe still has some big lifts left in him. And
absolutely.
Like I said, you're just starting off. So yeah, who knows where that's going to end up, but it's going to be exciting to kind of be a part of and watch. So yeah, best of luck to both of you guys in your training, and best of luck for whatever competitions you might be getting into next. And like I said, just stay in touch. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about some grip stuff again in the future. So.
Thanks, Zach.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated.